and Puerto Rico came out on fire. They went from probably the highest of highs celebrating winning that game to all of a sudden the lowest of low when Edwin Diaz injured his knee during the post-game celebration.
It's hard to even talk about.
I mean, we were in shock watching it.
It happened as we were we had just finished up on set, and we're walking to another room to start watching the game, and we hear, we have people on the staff running, saying, "Oh my God, Edwin is hurt. He's getting carried off the field." And I'm like, "What do you mean he's got carried off the field? I just watched the last out.
The game.
The game's over." And they're saying when the team was jumping up and down celebrating, Edwin Diaz went down to the ground, had to get carried off the field. We see it now if you're watching. He was put in a wheelchair, wheeled off the field. It's being evaluated as a right knee injury. So what was thought at a time to possibly be an Achilles, the social media doctors were out in full force.
Yes.
But it is officially they're looking at his right knee. Nothing has been, as we're recording immediately following the game on Wednesday night, nothing as of now has been announced. The Mets tweeted this: Edwin Diaz injured his right knee after tonight's WBC game. He will undergo imaging tomorrow, and we will update when appropriate. Look, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. He is, aside from just a human being getting hurt in this way, it's heartbreaking in other ways. This is the best closer in the game of baseball right now. This is heartbreaking for Edwin Diaz. It's heartbreaking for the New York Mets, for the fans of the Mets, and to be quite honest with you, it's heartbreaking for the game of baseball because there's not a lot that was better going on than Edwin Diaz, the doors opening up in the bullpen, Timmy Trumpets playing, the trumpets blaring, him coming in and blowing people's doors off for 3 straight outs. It was incredible. This is a big loss. It's heartbreaking. I'm struggling to talk about it. I struggled when it happened to even come to terms with it for a little while. And this has repercussions on, this is tough for the Mets and for the game of baseball for sure.
Yeah, and I think what also kind of was heartbreaking was seeing his brother is also playing on Team Puerto Rico. Alexis Diaz was on the field crying with him. That's where you really, truly understood the magnitude, I think, of the injury and the impact that this has, as you mentioned, not only on the game of baseball and the Mets, but also the World Baseball Classic. Because this is a lot of teams' big fear, having their main guys, best guys in each position, come and play a big tournament like this during the middle of spring training. So what does this mean for the tournament moving forward?
I think that's probably the question that after you talk about Edwin Diaz as a human being, I think that's probably the most important thing here is Edwin Diaz is hurt, and this really sucks. But after down the line comes, okay, well, he got hurt in this World Baseball Classic tournament, right? And what does this mean for the tournament? And there's plenty of people out there now saying, this tournament means nothing. This is ridiculous. This should have never happened. And for so many reasons, I need to address this because I couldn't be further from the truth. Let's start with people saying this tournament means nothing. To who? You? The people saying that? Because you look at these players on every single team, and they're all playing super hard. They're all saying they're having the best time of their life. The energy, the passion, the ability for them to be able to represent their home country. Or who else? The fans in the stands? The ones crying tears of joy, crying in the wake of defeat, the energy, the passion, the energy from the crowd, and no matter what location you're at. So when we're saying this tournament doesn't matter, I would argue that that's completely false. That's ridiculous. This tournament is continuing to grow the game of baseball. It's furthering players' love of the sport. It's furthering fans' love of the sport, and it's continuing to grow the sport globally. I think that's the first and foremost important thing to say is you can say this tournament means nothing to you, but turn on the TV and you'll see immediately how important this tournament is to all the players involved, all the fans in the stands, and to so many people involved in all of this.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said here. And another thing people have to realize, this was a freak accident. He was celebrating, jumping up and down. This could have happened at any point during spring training. If you're jumping up and down in the clubhouse with if you're walking.
I don't mean to cut you off. This is important to what you just said. Last year, 2021, the New York Mets spring training, they had a day where they were tasked by the coaches. The outfielder was going to catch a ball, and they were going to celebrate winning the World Series to practice what they would do. The team went nuts. They were throwing their gloves. They were jumping up and down. They were doing exactly what Team Puerto Rico was doing tonight after the victory, because they wanted to practice that feeling of celebrating. So to your point, of course, it's a freak accident. It could happen anywhere. They literally practiced it last year in spring training.
Yeah. It's one of those, you never want to see it happen. You never want to see it happen to one of the best in their position in the game. And during a tournament where everything is celebrated on such a high world stage level. But this is what happens in sports. Every single sport. You're going to see people get injured early in unfortunate circumstances. And that's what happened here. I mean, our hearts go out to Edwin Diaz, and we hope it's nothing that's going to keep him out for the whole season. And hopefully, eventually, maybe he'll be able to make it back by the end of the season. But at this point, it's unfortunate, but it happened. And we still have to continue to celebrate this game and this tournament.
We will, obviously, as I said, we don't know right now.
Yeah.
Apparently, more will be out tomorrow. Alex and I and the Flippin Bats crew will be on our way to Miami tomorrow. So immediately when we get there, the first show that we are up and running, we will have an update. I'm sure you will have all heard it, but we will have our thoughts on the whole situation. And just to finish off your point here about how much of a freak accident this is, you know, I was thinking about this, and Gavin Lux tore his ACL just trotting to third base this spring training. Michael Soroka tore his Achilles walking into the locker room a couple of years ago. Royce Lewis, the Twins' top prospect, tore his ACL slipping on ice in the offseason. These things happen. So we can point to exactly what he was doing. The truth is, he wasn't even playing a baseball game when this happened. He was celebrating. And did it happen at the WBC? Sure. But these things happen. I remember vividly Paul George years ago in an exhibition tune-up for Team USA in the Olympics. In the exhibition tune-up, he tore his ACL out for a while. I mean, it's a freak accident. It happens. And unfortunately for Edwin Diaz, it happened tonight as he was celebrating the monumental Puerto Rico victory that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about, because today the games were all great, but this one kind of stood out above the rest because of the talent on both sides, and Puerto Rico and the Dominican and the crowds. It was insane, Alex.
It was insane. We were told, because this was the later game, the evening game in Miami. There was a game before that. Fans were lined up starting at 9 a.m. for this game. Both Dominican fans and Puerto Rico fans. They were waiting the entire day, waiting for the first game to finish just to get in and be a part of this moment. And the moment was so big. It was so electric. You could feel the energy of these fans through the TV and throughout the entire game. Every play, even if it was a pop out fly ball, fans were going insane. If you weren't watching, you were listening to it. You're like, oh, home run ball. Oh, no, that was just an easy standard.
Just your routine baseball play.
But the crowd was going insane. A lot of people had the Dominican Republic favored to win the entire tournament, and they got knocked out in pool play.
I think every game that the Dominican played in this tournament, they were the pretty heavy favorites to win from the beginning. The game against Venezuela when they lost big time. The games where they did win. This game, they were the pretty heavy favorites. And one thing I feel like, you know, needs to be talked about more and more is the crowd, and just this game as a whole. Baseball in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico is baseball unlike most people here in the United States know it, and it is special. And to see those crowds, to see the atmosphere and the game that we got, and this is there's more unfortunate things about the situation, but one of the unfortunate things about the Edwin Diaz situation is, rightfully so, that became the conversation after the game. Worried about a human being. The game that did take place was probably one of the, I would say definitely the most electric game in World Baseball Classic history, and probably one of the better games. It ended up 5-2 Puerto Rico. They get out to an early lead. A lot happened all around. Big plays, big hits. But to me, the most exciting thing
oh my goodness.
that happened in this game, Alex, Francisco Lindor and his Little League home run. Little League inside the park home run. It was so cool.
It was incredible. And a rare error by Julio Rodriguez that just had a weird bounce that went right by him. And Lindor did not stop running. And then there was another error when the ball was trying to come in. It was electric. That moment, I think, really shifted the game to Puerto Rico.
Yep.